Alrighty, so UFC is about to wrap up at the end of the year. We've already had the final card and everything, but it's Christmas time, it's New Year's, type shit. So I decided I'm gonna make a video on the most underrated UFC fighters in each division, and this is going off the rankings, so they must be ranked. So unfortunately, no Mauricio Huffys, no Brian Battles, if you're a fan. Just the ranked fighters, pound for pound list is not what I'm going to be looking at here. It's just mainly all the men's division. If you're asking why I'm not ranking any of the women's in the division, it's because I don't care at all. None of them matter. Anyways, with that being said, let's move in through the divisions here. So starting with flyweight, I think my pick for most underrated fighter for 2024, as far as the rankings go, is Kai France. Now, this is a little bit of a sneaky one, because when we look at the rankings, there's a few, right? We have the Steve Ercegs that a lot of people, for some reason, think he beat Pantoja. It wasn't close, but okay, if you want to say it was close. 3-2 decision, in my opinion, isn't that close. I don't think Steve Erceg arguably won one of those 3 rounds. Now, there's a few moments where he could have, if he maybe landed a harder shot that wobbled Pantoja. Maybe if Steve Erceg landed more takedowns, had a little bit more top control. But none of that happened. And I don't think the rounds are that arguable. I think he unanimously lost 3-2 to Pantoja. But decent skill set nonetheless. Regardless, I don't think he's that underrated. Like, he did just get knocked out to Kai France, which is one of the reasons why Kai France is so high up there. But another character you might be looking at is like a, where is he? Manel Cap, because of that performance he did to Bruno Silva. Now that is Bruno Silva, not the middleweight one, the flyweight one. Now, the flyweight one is better than the middleweight one. That, like, no doubt about that, right? Like, I think we can all agree with that in terms of level of fighter here. But the problem with this Bruno Silva is that he's not really that well tested, and Manel Cap whooped someone who's not really tested. So, yeah, like, great performance, one of the best performances we've ever seen, even though Manel Cap was still taking shots, and he got nut shotted a few times, and he got the finish off a nut shot, but it was well deserved on Bruno Silva. Regardless, I think Manel Cap is adequately rated right now. A lot of people think he's a good contender for the belt, but they want to see one more for him, and that's kind of the general consensus. I think that's adequate. I think that's very fair for Manel Cap, probably beats Israel Adesanya in a 1v1, but, it is what it is. He could probably beat Kai France, but I think a lot of people sleep on Kai France because he's not a big name, and he's not fighting, like, the biggest of names, and in almost every matchup, he's like the underdog-ish, Now, his loss records are actually really, really good. He lost to Amir Albazi. This is kind of a bullshit loss because he didn't lose the fight. He won pretty much every single round except for the round where he almost got rear naked choked. If you look at the, numbers in the fight and you rewatch the fight, he was just ahead in every round except for the one that he almost got submitted. So in my opinion, it's one of the more horrendous robberies, especially in 2023. But he comes back in 2024 and he absolutely knocks out Steve Erceg. And I rate this win a lot higher because, number one, everyone is like jerking off Steve Erceg, saying he's the rightful champion. He's not, but okay. But this was a round 1 KO. So not only did Kai France learn the habits of Steve Erceg, like, outside the cage, so he's researching the fights, he's taking time to learn his opponent, but he also learned it inside the cage, because the combo that he hit Steve Erceg with, he whiffed a few times early on, and then by the end of the round, he was just able to land it and put Steve Erceg out cold, and I think that's a big thing to do, to a high-level guy like Steve Erceg. While I do think Steve Erceg is overrated as fuck, I don't think Steve Erceg is, like, dog shit, I think he is still a ranked flyweight. I think he deserves that position. But regardless, I think Steve Erceg is just, it's a really good win. It's a really good win from Kai France. And really, the only bad losses he has are to the Brandons. You know, you have Brandon Moreno, you have Royval, and you have Moreno. And then other than that, he lost to some guy 10 years ago. Who gives a fuck? And then he had a little bit of a loss streak early in his career, you know? But he started to pick up steam, and once he picked up steam, he's even beating guys like Cody Garbrandt, you know? And I know a lot of people are like, Cody Garbrandt's chinny, right? But I get it. He is kind of chinny. I get that, right? But it is just, these are solid wins, you know? If you're outstriking Cody Garbrandt on the feet, you at least have some sort of level of technique, especially in 2021, during Cody Garbrandt's kind of era, if you will, you know? Askar Askarov, what it is what it is, you know? But only losing to the Brandons, getting robbed by Amir, and smoking Seaverse. Kai Kara-France is still good. He's still young. He's still in prime. His record isn't that bad. I think he's still, like, a pretty decent contender. And I could see him just fighting for the belt off of Steve Erceg. I feel like it's warranted. And also, not really much else you can do with the division. Maybe give him a nil cap. And I don't think, like, Kai Kara-France is a pushover in any fight, you know? I do think he gives a lot of the streaking contenders, like Asu Almabayev, and, like, Tagir-ish, you know, Joshua Van. That'd be even a interesting question mark. So I think Kai Kara-France does kind of, like, have these 50-50 matchups in the division, and if they're not 50-50, he has the advantage in, outside of the Brandons. So I kind of rate Kai Kara-France. I feel like no one talks about it, and I think he's got probably the heaviest hands in the whole division. Yeah, probably the heaviest hands in the whole division. That's probably where I'd put him. And he's got slick boxing, and he's got good technique, you know? You don't see that a lot from fighters. He's got great ability to not get submitted, especially when we look at recently, I guess, with the Amir Albazi, you know? But Amir Albazi isn't all that, is what we found out. But he fought a grappling Amir Albazi, to be fair, so he kind of, like, fought Amir Albazi in Amir Albazi's realm, and pretty much whooped his ass, except for that one round, where I don't even know how they gave him Amir Albazi that win. Regardless, yeah, I think Kai Kara-France is the most underrated in flyweight. Moving on, I kind of don't want to make this video like an hour long like I've been doing recently, so I'm going to speed through some of them. So moving on to bantamweight. Now, this one's a little interesting. There are a few picks. Ayman Zahabi, Canadian. Unfortunately, can't put him there, because Canadians notoriously are shit whenever they get ranked. They just lose their IQ. Marcus McGee's also a good one, because he is older, but he is a Giga Chad. Mario Batista, fuck him. Song Yadong is kind of there, but he's been battle-tested, and I think what we learned is Song Yadong just isn't good enough for top 5. So I went with Jose Aldo. Now, why did I pick Jose Aldo? Well, his losses are some of the best losses you'll ever see on a record. You know, you have former champions. His first loss coming into the UFC is to Conor McGregor in featherweight, which is important when I'm talking about underratedness here, you know? And while his stats may be 38, apparently the birth certificate was fucked up when he was born, and he just wrote a number down when he was asked his birthday and all this other shit. So apparently it might be like in the 40s, but who cares? It's Jose Aldo, you know? But yeah, he's part of the biggest moment in MMA history, where MMA probably blew up during, like, not during, but just before COVID, during the Conor McGregor era, and he was knocked out. You know, it really does suck. Should have been given an instant rematch, but Conor McGregor kind of fucked off from featherweight right after the win, so it is what it is. You know? And then he whoops Frankie Edgar during a Frankie Edgar Heights, you know, and then he loses to Max Holloway twice. Thought that's not a bad loss at all. You know? And then we get into the blessed area, and then he's whooping people he needs to whoop, and then, oh, there's a new champion in town. It's Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest featherweights of all time. And Max Holloway is also here as one of the greatest featherweights of all time. You know? So it's just like, oh, okay, so he loses to two greats back-to-back. You know? And then he loses to Marlon Moraes via split decision, which, you know, arguable. But, you know, Marlon Moraes is, I believe, a former champion. And then we have Peter Yan, which, Peter Yan is a former champion, you know? And he got TKO'd by Peter Yan, which, you know, Peter Yan's no mercy. It is what it is. Peter Yan's got some of the best hands in the entirety of the UFC. So it's just, like, there's not bad losses here, you know? Marlon Moraes technically knocked out fucking Merab Dvalishvili. You know, he knocked him out in the middle of the fight, even though it's not counted as a knockout. You know what I mean? Also knocked out fucking Aljamain Sterling. You know, so did Sean O'Malley, but you know, it is what it is. But anyways, yeah, it's just Jose Aldo's losses are literally to former champions, and he gets robbed by Mario Bautista. I genuinely felt like Jose Aldo did enough to win this fight. I do think it was a clear Aldo 2-1. And I know Mario was holding him against the fence, but we've seen that holding against the fence in some fights don't fucking matter. You know, apparently when Brian Battle holds fucking Randy Brown against the fence, it's a split decision, and people are pissed off at Brian Battle for ruining their parlays, you know? But when fucking Mario Bautista does it, all of a sudden, you know, we're throwing in the towel. But anyways, no, it's just Mario Bautista is a little nut hugger when it comes to the fence. I don't ever want to see Mario Bautista fight again. Absolutely embarrassment to the sport. And you could say, well, Jose Aldo should just be able to get off the fence. He was in moments. It is what it is, right? But regardless, I do think Jose Aldo is probably the most underrated bantamweights of the rankings right now. And I don't, like, really see that many that compete with him. Like, he's 38 years young. He's a former champion in 2 divisions. He's only losing to champions and Mario, but that's a split. And Marlon Moraes, but that's a split. You know what I mean? So he kind of only gets robbed by fighters who aren't his level. And then when they are his level, he just barely can't beat them, mainly because of age. He's still got pop. He's still got good leg kicks. He's still got probably decent takedown defense, I'd imagine, from all the fights I've been seeing, at least recently, especially with the Marab one. It is what it is. Sometimes you just get held by a fence, you know? It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, you know? Anyways, regardless, we move on to the featherweights, and for the most underrated ranked featherweight, there's a few options, you know? Diego Lopez, I think, has a really good position over Ilia Topuria if they were to fight, you know? Mozavar Evloev is a stinky stinker who nobody likes. Dan Ige is also a really good contender. Edson Barbosa, if he didn't have that last performance, probably would have been my pick, but I went with Arnold Almighty Allen. Now, why is Arnold Allen up here? Well, let's just say his winning streak was absolutely fucking insane. Now, I know there's caveats to this, but he beat Sadiq Yusuff by decision. That's a good win. He whoops Dan Hooker on the feet. I think he was injured, though, in this fight, or something was weird about this fight. But he whooped Dan Hooker in this fight in the first round, which is very impressive. Featherweight, I know it's drained Hooker. There's caveats here. I get that, right? But it's still a good win. Moving on, Calvin Kattar. He whips him, and then Calvin Kattar gets injured. You know, it is what it is. Knee injuries happen. Calvin Kattar's getting a little old, but a nice win regardless, right? And then he fights Max Holloway and makes it fairly close. If you rewatch that fight, there's a decent argument that it's 3-2 Max, which I know it's like, well, Max clearly won. Max is like the decision striking king. You don't beat Max Holloway by decision in a striking match. It does not happen. You know, not even Volkanovski could do it just with striking, right? He had to mix in the takedowns and everything. And Arnold Allen kept this fight all stand-up. He didn't even bother shooting a takedown, or if he did, it's just completely, like, he maybe shot for one and then didn't bother after. But Arnold Allen was going toe-to-toe with Max Holloway, and he was there for it. But this was kind of one of those moments where you could tell Arnold Allen, it just looked like he didn't want to finish the fight. But regardless, his corner is really good to tell him, hey, it's the 5th round, you got to go for broke, you know? And in the final second, he does get knocked down. And conveniently, after he gets knocked down by Max Holloway then goes on a 2 KO streak over the Korean Zombie and Justin Gaethje, which is kind of crazy to think about. And then we move on to Mozavar Evloev, who's a flawless fighter, you know, has no losses, and arguably Arnold Allen won this fight. You know, even on the scorecards, I think it should have been Arnold Allen 2-1, personally, just watching the fight back. But regardless of that, Mozavar Evloev also should have got knocked out by those grounded, quote-unquote, knees, you know, when they weren't grounded. Mozavar had a pinky on the canvas, and they considered that a grounded opponent for whatever reason. Should have been given the KO, especially in Canada. He was robbed of that. Really does suck. But, yeah, that was a rough one to watch through. But I think Arnold Allen was making it competitive on the feet. Did he get kind of dropped at a moment by Mozavar? It is what it is. People are appreciating Mozavar striking a little bit more these days, and Mozavar likes to keep it busy on the ground. I think Arnold Allen made it very close with Mozavar every round, and there was maybe one clear Mozavar round, and I think the other two are coin flips at best, But yeah, I do think Arnold Allen still almost beat a flawless fighter in Mozavar, who just beat Aljamain Sterling. Moving on. He whoops Giga Chikadze. Now, this was a stellar performance from Arnold Allen. He definitely deserved the win there. He was just pouring it on Giga Chikadze almost every round. But yeah, regardless, Arnold Allen, I think, is still a streaking contender. And this guy could be the future Max Holloway. Even though he's only 2 years younger than Max Holloway. Or I think 2 years. Yeah, I think 2 years younger than Max Holloway. I still think Arnold Allen is like the new gen Max Holloway. He does have good grappling. He does have good hands. He does have decent power. He does have a okay chin at time. It's almost like, it's like if you had Max Holloway, you took away a little bit of his chin's HP, and then you gave him a little bit more of a submission threat, and that would be who Arnold Allen is, So I think not a lot of people give Arnold Allen the respect he deserves in the division. And I think a lot of people look at Arnold Allen like a free win. Like a Josh Emmett beats Arnold Allen. Or like an Aljamain could beat Arnold Allen. Or like a Lerone Murphy beats Arnold Allen. Me, personally, I'm picking Arnold Allen to beat anyone below him in the rankings. Including Edson Barbosa. And I rate Edson Barbosa really highly. Including a Dan Ige, Bryce Mitchell. I could see him out-grappling Bryce Mitchell. I could see him out-point striking Lerone Murphy. His corner is really good, So I do really, really like Arnold Allen. I think he's super underrated. I think a lot of people don't give Arnold Allen the respect he deserves. But let's move on to the lightweights. Now, this one is a tough one. Renato Moicano. I think he's adequately rated at this point. Most people think he will be a lightweight champion. And once he's lightweight champion, obviously he's going to be the most dominant champion of all time. He will just submit everyone. He's going to submit Islam in round 1. I think everyone knows that, right? I don't even think that's up for debate. He obviously TKOs Charles Oliveira in the first round via ground and pound. Paddy Pimlet's got nothing on fucking Renato Moicano's dominant grappling. He 10-7 Paddy Pimblett every round. We all know this, though. That's no surprise. That's no secret, right? He'd bring Khabib out of retirement, pick up Khabib by the fucking single leg, and then just dunk his ass straight on the ground. KO by slam. Because Renato Moicano's just this next level fucking grappler who's learning that MMA grappling is very different than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappling. Shout out to Renato Moicano's podcast with the other Brazilian lads. But yeah, Renato Moicano I think is adequately rated. I think we do think he's one of the greatest of all time. So I can't put Renato Moicano there. Beneil Dariush is a decent pick. Because Beneil, at one point during last year, people were saying that this guy's the next lightweight champion. That's all I'm saying. The whole entire internet was saying Beneil's the next champion who's going to beat Islam. Even Islam was calling out Beneil. That's all I'm saying, But then we have like a Joel Alvarez who just got ranked. But my pick is Dan the Hangman Hooker. Now, why am I picking Dan Hooker? I genuinely think Dan Hooker's got the best chance to beat Islam right now. Genuinely. I think he has the best chance to beat Islam currently, sitting in this moment right now. Dan Hooker, in his last fight against Gamrot, had some of the best scrambles we've ever seen. Those were almost Royval level of scrambles on the ground. And if he can do that with Islam and just keep it on the feet, Islam will get slept by Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's a gamer. Dan Hooker is able to go dirty boxing with fucking Dustin Poirier, and that was semi-recently. And now that Dan Hooker, I think, is feeling himself at lightweight, and he's actually trying to make a lot of money at lightweight, and, be successful at lightweight, I think he's packing on the muscle. And the muscle he's been packing on have been proven to do him well, Beating Claudio Puelles is whatever, who the fuck cares, right? But beating Jalen Turner, not only by beating him, but breaking Jalen Turner. After the first round, Jalen Turner basically was starstruck. He had no idea what to do because Dan the Hangman Hooker was standing in front of him fucking smiling off all the damage, all those head kicks, all those fucking, you know, wicked right hands that he was just munching on for breakfast. And then he just came in round 2 and 3 and whooped Jalen Turner's ass. Gamrot, similar thing. Gamrot was supposed to be the backup for a title fight. So Dan Hooker says, nah, mate, I can take him on. Yeah. And he gets in there and whoops his ass for 3 rounds. You know, arguably 3 rounds. He drops Mateus Gamrot as Gamrot gets dropped very often in his fights. I got the prediction right. Just saying, if you're looking for picks and predictions, I do them every week on every UFC card. You know, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell. That is what it is. Anyways, yeah. No, I think Hooker's very underrated. Yes, he did lose to Islam Makhachev. He lost to Islam Makhachev. It is what it is. It was a short notice fight, and he got Kimura'd. Oh no. He got Kimura'd off a short notice fight. I think this is where he's taking serious, like, okay, let me research my opponents. Okay, let me find out how my opponent fights. Okay, let me pack on some muscle so I'm able to, you know, make this weight cut, and then once I make the weight cut, fucking swing some bangers in there, you know, swing some heat in that cage. So Dan Hooker is definitely my pick for lightweight, underrated fighters. I feel like he's one of the best in lightweight right now, and I think he's very underrated. And in every matchup, like the Jalen Turner fight, he was an underdog. In the Gamrot fight, he was an underdog. If he got a Gaethje fight, I'm betting you he'd probably be the underdog. People don't give Dan Hooker the respect he fucking deserves, you know? I think he does clear a lot of lightweights. There's only a few questionable ones, and that would be Islam, Dustin, and maybe Max. And even then, I don't think Dan Hooker's odds are that bad. I think it's still 50-50 with those fights, you know? We did just see Dustin Poirier go to war a few times, and he's also been knocked out recently. Dan Hooker, this might be like Dan Hooker's fucking time to shine. You know, he's entering a new prime in 34. It is what it is. He's showcasing just elite level IQ in these fights against the Jalen Turner, against the Mateus Gamrot. And while they're split decisions, they are very clear rounds for Dan Hooker. So I think, personally, Dan Hooker's my pick for the underrated fighter in the lightweight currently. I think people need to give him more respect. Anyways, moving on to welterweights. Now, welterweight is another iffy one. Because we do have, like, the Shavkats. We do have, like, the Ians who went to a decision with Shavkat. We do have Sean Brady, which I feel like a lot of people sleep on. We do have Buckley, who a lot of people sleep on. Overall, this division is kind of stacked, but I'm going to kind of show respect where respect is due. My underrated fighter in a welterweight, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Now, I know it's a little weird, and I know it's like, bro, he's 42. But hear me out, okay? Yes, he's lost to Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Joaquin Buckley. At some point, all these fighters are going to be fighting for a title. Just saying. Darren Till fought for a title. Anthony Pettis fought for a title. Was he a belt holder? I don't even remember. Tyron Woodley was a champion. I'm just saying, guys, if you look at his record, it's going to age very well. Okay? I'm just saying. You know, Joaquin Buckley, probably top 3, top 5 welterweights in the world right now. Probably gets a title shot after one more fight. Shavkat's getting a title shot now. Bilal Muhammad's the champion. Gilbert Burns fought Kamaru for the title. Anthony Pettis, fucking... Guys, I mean... Those aren't bad losses. Like, these are really good losses to have. This is another case where his losses are actually really good. And they're just going to age even better, you know? But... the main reason why Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's here, not just because of the losses here, is because he looks good in every fight. It's not like he looks like he's an old 42-year-old, you know, Clay Guida looking in there, trying to be explosive, and then eventually just making a dumb IQ move. Stephen Wonderboy is piecing up these guys every single chance he gets. And the only time he really gets dominated is by people laying on him because they're out muscling a 40-year-old man. You know, it is what it is, right? And he's taking these, like, former belt contenders or current champions and fighting them, and he's still, like, doing decently well against them. with Shavkat Rakhmonov, he was piecing him up in round 1, and he was looking good in round 2, and then he got submitted. It is what it is, you know? Joaquin Buckley, same thing. Arguably, Stephen Wonderboy won the first 2 rounds, and in the 3rd round, he just got knocked out by one of the most devastating right hands I've ever seen in the combat fucking sport history, by Joaquin Buckley. I think that shot genuinely KOs any human being on this planet, even a Marvin Vettori. But Wonderboy did take it, and it really sucks to see that Wonderboy gets knocked out, but it is just one of these situations where it's like, skill for skill, he's one of the best strikers, still. Arguably in the division, arguably in the UFC. Like, this guy is still crazy good on the feet, you know? If he just had a little bit more pep in his step, he'd be able to finish these guys, like a Joaquin Buckley or a Shavkat, but he just doesn't. And unfortunately, he does have the Sean Strickland effect, where I'm sure his strikes probably hurt, but they don't do a lot of damage, if you know what I mean. Kind of just annoying to get peppered at range by a Wonderboy, but he can't really, like, finish you just because of his age. You know, unless you're Kevin Holland, who throws in the towel every chance he gets, like he does in every single fight. Kevin Holland is just not a real fighter. He's just a fake fighter who's in it for only money, and he'll only try when his career's on the line, pretty much. You know, fucking... Anyways. But yeah. You know, win over Vicente Luque. That's aging very well. A win over Jeff Neal. That hasn't aged the greatest, but you know what? We take it. He beat Jorge Masvidal, which is technically hard to do in the era of Jorge Masvidal for some reason, you know? And I know, like, the narratives are gonna be like, oh, but, like, you know, he lost to Woodley, and Woodley sucks, and he lost to Till, and Till sucks. But these were during, like, different eras of, like, Tyron Woodley was actually something, you know? Darren Till was actually something, you know? These are just different auras around them at the time, you know? You gotta understand that as MMA fans. But yeah, that's my pick for welterweight. I'm gonna move on before I make this video an hour and go on to middleweight. My middleweight pick, as much... This goes against everything I stand for in MMA, because I personally hate this fucking guy. I think he's not overrated. I think he's underrated, because even I underrate him, because he is, on paper, as some say, really good. Wait, is he still there? Hold on, give me a second here. He's not there. Wait, where is he? I swear he was... Am I tripping? Oh, he's not even in the second category anymore. That's kind of crazy. Damn, that sucks for him. Anyways. Is he... No, what the fuck? I thought he was... Weird. Anyways. My pick for middleweight is Roman Dolidze. Personally, I'll be the first one to admit it. I'll stand on business. I think Roman Dolidze sucks cock. I think he's one of the worst fighters I've ever seen compete in any sport ever. Listen, I know he's good in jiu-jitsu, but let's be real. No combat sport fan is like, ooh, I can't wait to go watch my jiu-jitsu match. No one really watches jiu-jitsu unless they're watching something else. Let's just be real, guys. Anyways. Yeah. But... Listen, Roman Dolidze looks shit in every fight. He looks like he's gassing out after the first minute. He looks like if you had Turkali's IQ, so he just looks like shit. He had DDP's gas tank, so he gasses out within the first 10 seconds. And... Ooh. Kron Gracie's striking, where it just looks like visually shit, you know? But his grappling is... I know everyone's going to rate him as like some of the most dangerous grapplers, blah, blah, blah. His grappling's on level with Paul Craig. I think we can admit that. He's got a Paul Craig level of grappling, you know, where it's pretty good. But because Roman Dolidze has a better chin, he's probably better than Paul Craig. You know, just saying. But regardless, that's kind of where I rate his skill, right? So, I don't need to tell you, I think this guy is dog shit. But... his record is really fucking good. Kind of. And on paper, he is really, really good. So, not only is he 6'3", pretty big dude for middleweight, he's 36, and age, you know, Father Time's gonna eventually crack down on him, but he's got some time left, apparently. 14-3 is a really good record in middleweight, because middleweight is full of, like, dog shit fighters. And he is beating, like, guys he's supposed to beat. Like, he did beat Phil Hawes. And I know Phil Hawes gets knocked out by the wind blowing in the opposite direction. But he did beat Phil Hawes. You know? I gotta give that some credit. You know? That's at least like a... Okay, you at least can throw a punch, right? But then he knocks out Jack Hermanson, which not even Joe Pyfer could do in 5 rounds. Why is he that good? You know? Why does he just knock out Hermanson like that, man? And this is during a younger Hermanson. Like, brother, why? Anyways, so you gotta be like, okay, this guy, he's forever a middleweight ranked fighter. He probably won't lose his ranking at middleweight. He passed the Jack Hermanson test with flying colors. But then we look at Marvin Vettori, and listen, it's 14-3. Being objective, I hate Roman Dolidze. I hate looking at him fight. He did win this fight. Just being objective, you know? I think he was outlanding in every round, and he was doing more in every round, and I really don't see the argument for Marvin Vettori winning that fight. This was one of the first fights that I, not, like, saw, I guess, but, like, I paid attention to, I guess, because this is during, like, when I started watching UFC. It was a couple months after I started, like, 4, maybe 5 months, 6 months. That's a little bit after I started watching UFC. But I do think, like, this win, or this loss is, like, this should have been a win. You know? I thought it was clear Roman Dolidze, even though Roman looks like shit, and I think he is ass. I think he deserves the win, you know? But anyways, moving on from that, then Imavov fight, genuinely, you could ask me 10 times who won that fight, I'll give you a different answer every single time from watching that fight. Because that fight was that shit. And that's where I really was just like, wow, Roman sucks cock. But it is, like, close with Imavov. Imavov is top level now. Not a bad loss in hindsight. He didn't get finished, even though he did look like absolute... He literally looked like fucking Play-Doh, just, like, moving around in there. You know, just plodding around, you know, dropping his fucking head every single time he wanted to shoot a takedown like he was about to get knocked out. Yeah, you know, I just hate... That fight was disgusting to watch. You know, wow, that was earlier this year. That's kind of crazy to think about. Anyways. But regardless, he loses to Imavov, still ranked in middleweight. And then he beats Anthony Smith, which he kind of smoked Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is shit. He's always been shit. He will always be shit. And that's kind of where Anthony Smith is at, you know? He's a coper. He's delusional. But he did beat Anthony Smith. Not even the great Vitor fucking Petrino could do that. Which, hey, just saying, I picked Dustin Jacoby to knock out Vitor Petrino. A lot of people were against it. A lot of people were arguing with me about it. And look who was right. Just saying, if you want picks and predictions, feel free to subscribe. Shameless plug over. Anyways. But yeah, I gotta give this guy credit. He beat Anthony Smith, and he did break Kevin Holland's rib, or popped his rib, or whatever, and caused Kevin Holland to quit fighting forever. You know, hopefully he gets cut after that, I'll be honest. But regardless, Roman Dolidze still looks shit in all these fights, but his record is good. So even though I do still think he's, like, garbage, I gotta give him credit. He is, like, kind of underrated when I look at him fight, and then I remember this guy has a KO victory over Kevin Holland. This guy knocked out Jack Hermanson. This guy beat Marvin Vettori in a decision, you know? And his only other loss is, like, to Trevin Giles. And this guy's also active as fuck. This guy fights, like, 3 times a year. Kind of Chad from him, I'm not gonna lie. I don't mind this guy as a person, like, talking, you know, he does look like a family man. I just hate watching him fight, just being honest. But yeah, that's my pick for middleweight. Moving on to light heavyweight. Now, light heavyweight, I think there's not really a lot of options. Light heavyweight kind of isn't really great right now. Menafield sucks. Smith sucks. Bogdan's good, but he's like bottom 15 good. Ugh. Azmat Mirzakhanov needs more work. Dominic Reyes is good, but he could still be chinny. Johnny Walker is chinny. Volkan Ozdemir is good, but he's clearly not good enough to beat Olberg. Nikita Krylov is okay, but not that great. Khalil Roundtree sucks. His best win is Anthony Smith. Don't know why people forget that. Carlos Olberg is good, but just in comparison to the comp he's given, I guess. Like, he is better than Ozdemir, but, like, barely. You know, Rakic just has no IQ anymore. Jan Blachowicz is just old, so it's questionable. You know, Jamal Hill, Yuri Prohaska, Magomed Ankalaev. Now, everyone jerks off Magomed Ankalaev like he's this crazy grappler and gonna out-grapple Alex. He's gonna get knocked out, but regardless, I think the most underrated fighter in the whole division right now, it's actually Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill. And I'm saying this because I know a lot of people love to clown on Jamal Hill because he did get knocked out in round 1 by Pereira, you know? Or as Jamal Hill would say, he got caught by Pereira. You know, not like he got dominated by a certain someone, but, you know, other than that, he got his arm snapped by Paul Craig, but he's still, like, he didn't tap. He didn't, like, quit the fight. The ref just called the fight. The dude's fucking tough. Like, this guy is really, really tough. For a 33-year-old, how do I say this? 33-year-old, let's just say, not from the Caucasus, you know? 33-year-old, not from the Caucasus. This guy's tough as shit. This might be the toughest, I'm trying to think of a good way. The toughest not white person I've ever seen compete, you know? Because notoriously, I think there's no secret, outside of gingers, which gingers do have probably the weakest chins in MMA, the same sort of ethnic background that one such as a Sweet Dreams possesses typically don't have great chins. Jamal Hill has been through a lot of punishment in some of these fights, and he's able to, like, make it a war, and he's also able to go 5 rounds consistently at light heavyweight. I don't think a lot of fighters have that in them, you know? And while he did get caught, and while he does have a little bit of that dad bod, with that big gut that he has, I don't know why his genetics just prevent him from having a nice, clean 6-pack, but it is what it is, I guess. Forever fat man, I guess. But yeah, Jamal Hill, I think he's got sneaky power. I think he will finish Yuri Prohaska, and I think out of everyone in the division, Jamal Hill is still the style to beat Alex Pereira. Yes, he got caught. It was off an injury, and I know that's kind of an excuse, but there's a few stipulations in that. Low blow, out of focus. I genuinely do believe that. I think Jamal Hill was, you know, a little bit too much time off, came off the injury, landed a low blow, and was like, ah, shit, my bad, you know, let me try to lock back in. Oh, I just got caught, you know? And I think that's what happened, and it really does suck, but I do think Jamal Hill's underrated. Like, I do think Jamal Hill does beat Khalil. Like, I heard, bro, people been yapping. I've been hearing a lot of people say that Jamal Hill saved his career by not fighting Khalil Roundtree, because Khalil Roundtree would have whooped his ass. I genuinely think Jamal Hill whoops Khalil Roundtree, you know? I think Jamal Hill can out-grapple a lot of these dudes, you know? He's already beat Johnny Walker. I think he beats Khalil Roundtree. I think he beats the Sam Olberg that showed up with that Ozdemir fight. I think he beats Rakic, you know? Clearly, I don't think he makes it as close as Yuri did. You know, I think he beats Jan Blachowicz, no problem. I think he does knock out Yuri Prohaska. I think he's even got good odds to beat Magomed Ankalaev. Like, I do think Jamal Hill is just really, really good. And a lot of people treat it as like, he's a Twitter warrior who sucks. This dude's big, bro. This guy's 6'4". A lot of these other light heavyweights are just slightly smaller than him. I know Yuri's not really a great example, but I think he's as big as Johnny Walker. No, Johnny Walker might be an athletic freak, though, to be fair. You know, but, you know, he's whooping people he needs to whoop. He knocked out Ovince St. Preux. John Jones took him to a decision. Just saying, right? And that's around the same time. Maybe that John Jones fought Ovince St. Preux? I don't know. I don't really care. Fuck John Jones and his whole career. But regardless, I think Jamal Hill is a sleeper in terms of skill. I do think he's really good. Skill for skill, I think he's really, really good. And now that he's warming up a bit, now he's probably training a lot more. Now he's really locked in to try to get his belt back. I do think Jamal Hill is going to look motivated. Anyways, moving on to the final division, the heavyweights. Now, heavyweights was kind of a tough one, I'm not going to lie, because all the heavyweights in the UFC are just fat fucks. Nick Parkin, love you, brother. You're a fat fuck. Lose some weight, please. Shamil Gaziev literally almost died to diabetes in the Jairzinho Rosenstruik fight. Waldo Cortez Acosta, one of the lowest IQ fighters I've ever seen. Also, just a fat dude. He really is. DeLima, same situation. Tai Tuivasa, just a fat Samoan who's just funny, so that's why he's still around. Derek Lewis, at the end of the day, is like kind of like the big fat lumberjack who like probably knocks down a tree with his hands, but he fights occasionally when he wants to. Best purple belt in, I think, Louisiana is where he said, I believe. Marcin Tybura, just another fat dude who's losing his hair, unfortunately. F in the chat for Marcin Tybura. Sergey Spivak, he is kind of the most skilled of the fat dudes, but he is still just a fat dude. When will we get athletic heavyweights, man? Joaquin Almeida, probably the most athletic heavyweight and probably the best grappler in the division, but I'd say he's adequately rated. He kind of went to a nut-hugging position in his last fight, and he got fraud-checked by that. Curtis Blades, probably the most athletic of the fats. While Jolton is just athletic, Curtis Blades got a little bit of chub on him, but he's athletic, you know? So, and he's got a good skill set. But Curtis Blades is adequately rated, I think. Sergey Pavlovich, I want to see him on a win, and then I'll start saying he's underrated, because I've been saying that Sergey Pavlovich is still a top 5 contender. And, you know, for the past, like, year, I've been saying that Sergey Pavlovich for Tom Aspinall, or versus Tom Aspinall 2, will be the next time that the belt changes. But, you know, just saying. But, yeah. My pick is going to be a guy who fought recently, and that is Alexander Drago Volkov. Now, he is here because not only do I have a bias because I picked Volkov to beat Cyril Gane, and he whooped Cyril Gane's ass. He whooped his ass. Everyone knows it. I'm happy everyone knows it. Even the French fans even think Cyril Gane lost that fight. Cyril Gane's corner thought they lost that fight because they were leaving the octagon. Cyril Gane thought he lost that fight because he was trying to leave the octagon. Broke my toe. Yeah, you broke your toe off of a checked leg kick. That's what's called checking a kick, dumb fuck. That's why the toe's broken. AKA, points to Volkov, baby. You know? Somehow people are saying round 2 was close. It was not. That was the clearest Volkov round, I think, of the whole fight. Outside of that, I don't see a world where you give fucking Cyril Gane the final round. And I think round 1's very close, but I'd even edge it to Volkov. I would get it if you picked Cyril Gane for round 1, though. I just think Volkov won that round, personally. I think he landed a little bit more impressive shots, and I think he outlanded by maybe 1 strike. I could be misremembering that, but I think it was like 1 significant strike difference or something. But regardless, his losses are to former champions and just really good guys who beat champions, you know? Cyril Gane, I'm not counting. So, Volkov should be on a 5-fight win streak. On Pavlovich, Tai Tuivasa, Romanov, which I know is shit in hindsight, but a lot of people are saying Romanov is like the next big thing during the time that Volkov got this fight. Rosenstruik, which is a good kickboxer to KO. But he lost to Aspinall. That's Aspinall. Cyril Gane before, but that's nullified because he just whooped Cyril Gane's ass. Curtis Blades, who is like probably the best aged heavyweight of them currently, right? Fighting a lot of the streaking contenders, like Derek Lewis, like did he fight Mungumbo? I think he did fight Mungumbo. I think he did fight Mungumbo. I can't remember if he fought Ngannou, but I think he did. But regardless, Curtis Blades is definitely the most battle-tested of the heavyweights right now in the top 5. And then he's lost to Derek Lewis by KO when he was whooping his ass and then got caught, is what it is. Before that, he's got some stinkers 10 years ago, but those are 10 years ago. No one cares about that. Volkov has done nothing but improve as a fighter. He's great on the ground. He's great on the feet. He's a 6'7" phenom, and his reach is, I think, only slightly lower than John Jones, thanks to a commenter on one of my last videos. Thank you, good sir, if you're in the chat. Anyways, yeah, I think Volkov is underrated. Everyone thought Cyril Gane, not everyone, to be fair. There were some people saying Volkov is going to win, but, you know, Guru, we want picks. A lot of people were picking Cyril Gane to whoop Volkov once again, and I'm happy they were wrong, but they probably won money off of it, so, hey, that's what happens when you're a gambler, I guess. You just flip a coin, and sometimes you're right, but yeah. Volkov, I definitely think, is probably the most underrated of the heavyweights right now. And I don't think is really close. You know, there's not really many athletic heavyweights. He's the big Paddy Pimblett now. He had the cornrows, I think they're called, and everything. You know, Patty the Body Lad, Patty the Drago Lad. I don't fucking know. Anyways, Volkov is my pick for the most underrated heavyweight. With all that being said, this is a 45-minute long video. If you made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you for watching. And yeah, these have been my picks for every underrated fighter in each division for 2024, going off the rankings charts. But yeah, all that being said, thank you for watching. And as always, I hope you have a good day.